Hi, welcome to Wrokdown. I'm Wendy Stapleton. Well, tonight is something a little bit different, out of the unusual, or the usual, I should say. We're going to have a little bit of a chat about the music industry and the way things have changed between the 60s and up to today. So our special guests are our producer and director, Miss Anita Monk, and not so much a guest as a pest. No, not a pest. My pesky big brother. He's not really my big brother, but he might as well be. We've been working together for a very long time and I love you dearly, but he's definitely pesky. Would you please welcome Mr. Bobby Valentine?
I bet that gets edited out. Hi, Wendy.
It shouldn't.
Hi,
edit
Anita.
it out.
Yeah.
Don't you dare.
She never says nothing nice.
I'll be
I bet it
really
gets edited
upset
out.
if you edit that out, because we've been on about this for years. There's a couple of months of the year where you're a whole year older than me.
Yeah.
Just for a couple of months.
Are you that close, are you?
Yeah.
You look so much older than Wendy.
Oh, jeez.
I love you, Anita.
That should hit the cutting room floor as well.
Okay.
I've got control.
Okay, guys, so let's get the ball rolling. Bobby, I shall throw to you.
Have we only got one episode? This is going to take volumes.
Is this going to be a series?
Yeah, it's going to be a mini-series.
A mini-series.
It's an epic.
A saga.
It's a saga. Well, given the fact that I'm not nearly as old as either of you, and I don't have that much experience of the 60s and 70s, and the 80s, I reckon even more so than the 60s and 70s, the 80s was the gold mine period. There was so much money, there was so much work, Crown opened. And the story that springs immediately to mind was Dobe Newton was supposed to be on to talk with us about this as well.
He's prettier than I.
Yes. No, we'll just explain that Dobe, the reason that we were hoping Dobe could come on the show is because he actually lectures in music law.
Yeah.
And he sort of probably has a broader knowledge legally, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Legally of what actually goes on within the music industry. And Dobe couldn't be with us tonight, but Miss Monk is.
With my little legal knowledge.
But the thing is, it's great,
Yeah.
because the thing is that if you don't put it out and you don't ask the questions, you
That's
don't get anything answered. So this is what we're going to discuss, and a lot of it are the issues that are problematic now.
But in his absence,
Cut it down, Bob, okay?
I was invited to go and do a lecture for Support Act at NMIT by Dobe and one of his students. And I was banging on about Support Act and making a living in music in the 80s. And just the volume of work we did. I mean, you know what it was like. You used to wear a beeper and go from studio to studio to do sessions and things.
It was before mobile phones.
And I'm banging on about, we did 6 gigs a week, 7, sometimes 9 gigs a week. We probably did half a dozen sessions on average during the day. We probably did radio interviews. We probably did any one of about half a dozen TV shows. And I'm going on and I sort of looked, there were about 60 kids in this room, and I looked up and they were all just sort of looking at me with their aghast, and I sort of realised that I've been banging on a bit. So I stopped and I said, has anybody got anything to say about it? Has anybody got any feelings about that?
Did they say liar, liar?
No, this little girl down the front, this really sweet little demure girl, put up her hand and she said, I'm pretty pissed off.
And so she should be.
Because they've got no prospects.
No, they don't.
The amazing thing is, and look, it's all driven by the fact that votes are in kids' education. And the incredible thing is that so much money is put into music education, but nothing's put into what happens to them after they graduate. Thousands of kids graduate from dozens of institutions at the end of every year and go and work in McDonald's or something because they can't work as sax players we use a lot of young players and they are absolutely extraordinary because they're so well educated. They're educated by all the guys we used to play with because there's no work for them.
That's
so
right.
they turn to teaching.
But see, the people that we watched when we were growing up, and I'm around about the same age, they didn't do music education. They just left school. And they learnt at home listening to the people that they loved, and we hear them on the show all the time. The moment I heard blah blah blah, that was it. I just practiced forever.
Well, you learnt on your feet.
That's
basically, you got
exactly
a gig
right.
and you
But these days, these
You
kids are
learn at the
made.
gig.
They're made, and it's the same for me for the arts across the board.
Mm.
They say you want to be an artist, you have to stay at school, you have to do your HSC, and you have to then go to art college, and by that stage, you've lost it. You should have started, getting right into it when you were 13 or 14. We can't change the education system, but that to me is a lot of the problem.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's so much a problem as a cause.
Yeah.
Because there is this glut of people. The internet's changed everything because now every second home has a home studio. Which is on one hand is fantastic because it gives access to people that wouldn't normally get access. People that perhaps don't have the confidence to walk into Mushroom Records with a demo or whatever. They can put it out on YouTube, or they can put it out on MySpace or any one of those social networking things, Facebook and stuff, and they can go viral. And they can make a name for themselves internationally, whereas they wouldn't even get a look in most of the time over here. They can't even get past the gatekeeper, past the receptionist.
Yeah.
And so it's just flooding the market. And so the hard thing, like I know with people, starting with Wrokdown Radio, when people talk to you about the music you play and things like that, they say, well, there's just no good music around anymore, which is totally wrong.
Totally wrong.
The problem is that the good music has been swamped by just the absolute plethora and the flood of music that's out there.
Terry Noon from the Musos Union told me that last year, or might have been the year before, whatever, if every CD, independent CD in Australia that was released by whoever was put end to end and played 24/7 for a whole year, each song would only be played like twice. There was so much, just so much material. And yes, you've got to sort through it. And that's why I think a lot of the radio stations, they don't want to know about independent music because you don't want to search through all that stuff. Do you want to say anything here, Wendy? Or you...
No, I'm actually very interested because the thing is that I think that apart from the fact that, as Bobby said, the internet, that's totally changed the whole music scene. The days of the record company are almost over. I don't know how people source their income. You probably do. I don't. I haven't got a clue. But B.
I did until last week.
B, the fact that we have probably 10% or even less of the gigs that we used to have in the 60s, 70s and 80s, especially the 80s, as Bob said. And because of that also, you don't have people hearing original material as much. So if they don't get airplay, there is no venue for their talent at all. There's nothing there. Having said that, let me say this. We'll be back in a minute.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown, my guests this evening. Anita Monk, our director-producer, and...
El Supremo.
El Supremo, are you?
No, that's her.
Oh, her.
I'm just
so
furniture.
What are you?
I'm just furniture.
Who used to say that to me just as stupid?
Mr. Bobby Valentine.
Yeah.
Yay! So, Bobby, Anita, we were talking about the fact that everything has changed, of course, as it does, but so drastically in the last, say, 3 decades in the music industry, particularly the fact that the access for people to have their music played on radio has diminished, and gigs, even though Bobby is going to bring up an interesting fact saying that there are quite a lot of gigs, a lot of the suburban gigs that we used to do, like the big pubs, where you'd get like 1,000 kids, 1,500 kids, the Village Green, the Dorset Gardens,
the beer buns,
all of those places. Yeah. They sort of, that doesn't happen anymore. So I'll throw back to you and let you pick up on that point.
Well, yeah, when I say there are gigs around, it has obviously changed because back in those days, thousands of people would go out on a Saturday night. one of the biggest factors is, yes, there's a lot of venues. I believe there's kind of a bit of a pokies hangover where people have suddenly realised they've lost about all the money they can actually lose on them. And the venues are starting to look at new ways of getting, or old ways of getting people back into the venues. So food's become more of a focus in a club or a pub. And they're putting acts in. They're not paying us enough money, but they're at least putting bands in and trying things. For kids, there's a lot of, like my son has sort of grown up through that time when there'd be 6 bands on playing in one venue, and they all load their gear in and then they play their 40-minute set. None of the bands know more than a 40-minute set. They haven't got enough songs to go any more than that, which is great. One of the major changes between the 80s and now is what we compete with. If you think back to the 80s, we never competed with nighttime football, never competed with nighttime cricket or any of the other activities, indoor cricket, all the nighttime things that people do.
Yes, but Bob, you're talking about, there's a big difference about what your son does and what you did. And we all, except for Wendy, who was lucky enough for a small window of opportunity, we did covers. We all used to love those bands, and we all used to just go and see them because they played great music. It wasn't just, here's another brown-eyed girl. It was music that they'd written, and it was exciting. Why aren't the kids getting the same excitement from the young bands these days?
But we had Countdown and all of those
shows.
Molly would give everyone a break, realistically, I think what was wonderful about Countdown was the fact that it didn't have to be charting. As a matter of fact, it was, he would break, sometimes he would break, he would say, you listen to this, you listen to this. So you got a chance, and on Sunday night, everyone in Australia was watching it.
Yes.
So the thing is that you could be totally just, the ink's just dried on your contract, your record's out, and you could be number one if on Monday.
Yeah. So what are they trying to do these days with the idol thing? They're trying to do the same thing, more or less. They're trying to break people. What's the difference?
Oh, I think.
Say something nice.
No. Well, I will say something nice because I think all the people that go on it, are incredibly brave.
Yes.
Because the thing is that they're putting themselves up there for a lot of scrutiny for a start, because it seems like it's not just a talent show, it's a game. It's almost like an endurance test to see who, not only who has great talent, who can stand the scrutiny and the rude things that are said to them. And honestly, I would hate she's too old to say no, but I would hate my daughter to ever say I want to go on that.
So how could our artists of the 60s and 70s that have come on here and they proved that they were so good, they're still being played on the radio now, what made them stronger?
I don't think they were stronger. I think that in actual fact it was probably just this
I think you've already said it. There was opportunity and there was exposure and
I think it was just it was just nicer. I think it was actually just nicer and friendlier.
But the whole idol phenomenon or X Factor, any of those things, is it's cheap to produce TV. Yeah. So there's a plethora of it, and everything, whether it be cooking shows or fat people running around the landscape or whatever, they're really cheap to produce because they're not paying talent. And the reason for the demise of, I said the landscape, not the studio, just relax. The reason for the demise of things like the Midday Show and Hey Hey and things like that was the bean counters started to say they're costing us too much money. It didn't matter about the ratings, it was costing us too much money, and they used what they cooked up as poor ratings to justify getting rid of those shows. I know from my own personal experience, and you know the same thing, when you went on to Midday, or if you appeared on Hey Hey, and if you were doing a gig that night, your door would go up by 25%.
If not more.
Not more.
Yeah.
And
power of telly.
The power of TV, and it's still the same. It's just that the focus of what they, I was going to say morally, but that's the wrong word because they don't have any morals. But the.
Do I have to cut that out?
No, that was good. We'll keep that. That was cutting edge. There's no control over content, right? So they can do whatever they like. So, and I'm talking about things like protection for Australian product. You know, that was wiped out thanks to Mr. Keating, I think, back in the day. And we're a tiny market. We need to be protected. That you can't use the argument that we're on the world stage.
No,
it doesn't apply to
no.
us. We're a tiny market, and Australian product, and not just music, in everything. Australian product needs to be protected.
Yes.
In order to compete with cheap imports and stuff like that.
Are we quickly talking about the 0% Australian content on commercial radio?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. We'll go into that.
Well, the fact that there's no control over it, they can play, they can do whatever they like. Our own station, Southern FM, or any community radio station, has a strict 25% monitored Australian content.
Yo, community radio.
Yeah. All power to.
Yeah.
Does it all come back down to money?
Yeah. And the problem there is that they won't invest, they won't throw any good money after bad because they won't take any risks. Everybody's so frightened of the board, the shareholders and all that sort of stuff. Do you know, have you heard about the big labels using the computer program to decide what's going to be a hit these days?
Oh no.
The big labels now are using this computer program that they feed your new demo in, and it has to meet a set of criteria. They've loaded in the number one hits for the last 50 years, and you play your demo, and the machine decides whether it's going to be a hit or not based on past criteria. And they use I can't remember the name of the record, but it's like Rihanna or somebody like that was one of the ones that got through this program and went huge mega hit. And they use that as, see, there's living proof that it works.
Oh, yakadoo. Yakadoo, shake pineapples in a tree.
I just can't stop that.
No. But see what I'm saying? Oh.
Yeah.
See, we had Stan Roth.
Yeah.
And we had Stan Roth in a phone. Yeah, exactly.
I heard a fantastic interview with Billy Pennell the other day. I was driving down the coast, and I was listening to Triple R was, and the Saturday afternoon host had Billy Pennell on, talk for like an hour, and Billy can talk.
Yes.
You know, he's fantastic. And he was talking about Stan the Man, you know, and the fact that Stan actually left a lucrative position in, I can't remember which station, 3KZ I think it might have been, because programming had come in. Yes. And they wouldn't let him play what he wanted to play.
He broke all the big artists in the 60s, didn't he? We'll take a short break, and when we come back, you, Bobby,
Sorry.
you are going to have the solution. Bobby's going to have the solution. I want to see that. I want to hear that. Be back soon.
Wrokdown.
We're in the midst of this.
You just promised that I was going to give the solution.
I did.
And in
the
words of the great Willie Wilde, if there's anything I can do to help you, you're in more trouble than I thought.
Yes.
So I don't think I do have the solution.
You don't have the solution.
Sure.
That was to the question of what one does to get airplay, unless you fit the criteria that the computer deems to be.
I think
a
it's
hit.
part of the big picture where it's everything. It's exposure. It's playing live. It's musicians getting the chance. Like they talk. I don't know whether you read the report, the government report that was commissioned after the big Slam rally just before the last state election, and it's amazing. I can't believe that.
I don't think Wendy slammed. Did you slam?
I slammed.
I slammed.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, but I was away.
Ah.
I do know what you're talking about. Then there was a big rally in the city.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
and they actually did achieve.
Dove Newton got up and did a great speech.
And they achieved. It was at the time when the bouncer, 2 bouncers for every venue, the live music causes violence kind of controversy was going on, and they won. They won quite a bit of ground on that, and they got that reformed so that, like at the time, we were doing a Sunday in a little pub in South Melbourne for about 40 people, average age probably about 40 or 50, and we had to have 2 bouncers, which cost $400, which was the price of the band, and they were going to sack us from that.
Oh, anyway, it was probably twice the cost of the band.
So this,
Yes.
Lauren was getting most of that. My daughter.
Dear, right.
But the report came out and addressed a lot of that stuff. The report was very, very much original indie music orientated, and they still came up In fact, not very much. It was entirely original music, indie music, inner suburbs of Melbourne. They still came up with the fact that the music industry, bearing in mind that they left out 80% of it, they still came up with the fact that the music industry contributes more than the AFL in revenue, in attendance, and in social impact, social, and preferably, hopefully, impact for the better rather than the worse. And so there's also this divisive thing within the industry itself, which we have to address, to, as we were saying before, about all the different Facebook pages, your website. You want to you want to do the dubs?
www.wrokdown.com.
No, the other one, the new one.
Musicians Collective.
You told me I had to flog it.
Sorry. musicianscollective.com.au, which is trying to get everybody as a voice for the independent musicians. And might I just say that independent musician is not what it used to be. Indie bands used to be off the edge, left of centre bands. Indie bands are now things like Ross Wilson is indie. Brian Cadd is indie. Everybody who's not signed to a record company is indie. So now we're talking about a big cross-section of music in Australia that doesn't get any commercial radio airplay. It's only on community, and we're trying to change that.
So the solution that you promised is...
No, you promised.
No, you promised that I'd promise it. And it's our first fight in 8 years.
Do we have to sing Kumbaya at the end?
No, we're not going to do that.
Won't be our last fight, don't you worry.
The solution is getting all of these elements moving in the same direction.
That's right.
Because there were 20,000 people conservatively turned up to that rally, and that was the tip of the iceberg as well.
Yes.
We should have an incredible voice, not just us, but the bar owners. They're suffering as well with the licensing. Yeah. The fees that they pay is also prohibitive to them putting in live music.
Can I also just interrupt and bring up the noise aspect? They're having incredible problems.
That is another episode.
With people now in the inner city that have moved back in because they want to live in the inner city and have moved into a pub that probably for the last 30 or 40 years has had live entertainment, and now are complaining to the councils that they're disturbed by the noise aspect.
And it only takes one person to complain.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
So the publicans also have that to deal with.
We've got a case in, and we won't mention any names because we can't, but I've just lost a gig, a very important gig, a long-running gig. One person moved into the area, complained, into a noisy inner suburban area, which shall remain nameless. The proprietor of the venue got 91 signatures on petitions and unsolicited letters from neighbours, including people that lived in the same block as this woman, and various other businesses around the area, all saying that they loved the venue, they had no problems with the way that it was run.
Was this a band like
an acoustic duo?
An acoustic duo.
4:30 in the afternoon on a Sunday.
Was it inner city?
It wasn't very inner city.
Not Narry Warren or anything like that?
No, very inner
so
city.
So this person lives in this flat, can I just ask, lives in an inner city flat and wants to sound like she's living in Cockatoo, is that it?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Without the bellbirds.
Without the bellbirds.
The point of the story being that the council upheld, they fined the venue, pardon me, they fined the venue, and the fine, despite the fact that the licence states that they are allowed, they're able to have live amplified music to a reasonable level, exact wording. The reasonable level is determined by a government code, which I think is NS1 from memory. I've got no idea what that means, but it sets what they say is a reasonable level. He's got documented proof that he's under that level. 90 signatures don't count against one complaint.
How does that happen?
That's democracy.
Nuts.
No, it's not. But that's what we're up against. And yes, you're right. Noise.
But see, this is the end. I mean, we've got all these other things that over the years, if you are a musician or anything to do with the arts, they don't really want to. It's not a part of being it's not a real job anymore.
Until their neighbourhood floods or
Yes.
burns down or something like that, then they're first on the phones.
But when I was young, if you were a musician or an actor, which I was an actor when I was younger, I was allowed to be on the dole and work part-time as an actor, but you can't do that anymore. So there's all these things that have been eroded away from musicians.
The Denmark government actually supports the Danish musicians in order to further the culture.
Well, maybe we could try that.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's my solution right there.
There, great done. Bob for president.
Now seriously, we've raised all these issues tonight, and it has been a great conversation. Obviously, the thing is, to have anything done, you need people power.
Absolutely.
So, if you have any ideas or any suggestions, would you contact www.wrokdown.com
Yes.
and send in your suggestions? Or, Bob, do you have a blog?
We're setting up a Facebook page, which is the standard thing. There's websites and all that, but why don't we centralise it all through Wrokdown?
Let's do that.
Because I'll have my information on the Wrokdown website, and rather than confuse the issue by throwing out a whole bunch of different Facebooks and wwws and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, so that's wonderful. So it's www.wrokdown.com. Would you please thank Bobby Valentine, Anita Monk, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Good night.